As you saw there in the report, there was a clip from an interview with the father of Adil Ahmed Dar. It was part of TRT World's documentary series Off the Grid. You can see the full program, Kashmir Fault Lines in the Valley, on Thursday at 21:30 GMT. Let's go to the discussion now. Joining me now from Srinagar is Parvez Imroz. He's the founder of the Jammu Kashmir Civil Society. It led to the discovery of mass graves in India-administered Kashmir. From Ibiza, we're joined by Sudhanshu Mittal, a senior official in India's ruling BJP party. And in Landsborough is Mohamad Junaid. He's an associate professor of anthropology at the Massachusetts College of Liberal Arts with a focus on Kashmir. Gentlemen, thanks for joining us on The Newsmakers. Mohamad Junaid, the big question, the main question, especially after Pulwama, people were asking, why and how did a young Kashmiri become a suicide bomber that could blow up 40 CRPF officers?
Thank you. So one of the important things that this report brings to attention is the systematic nature of torture in Kashmir, how so many people go through the hands of the state and come out injured physically, mentally, with scars left for life. A lot of people in Kashmir do not have resources to deal with that kind of experience. And the experience of Adil Ahmed Dar, who, as news reports had suggested, had been shot in the leg previously and had gone through that experience. We don't know what leads the path from being tortured to taking what one might conceive as a revenge. So I think that this report shows us the path or the reasons behind why somebody like Adil Ahmed Dar could take an extreme step like that.
Sudhanshu Mittal, is the system of governance in the valley especially creating and perpetuating the conditions for militancy?
What has just been stated has been the biggest lie I've ever heard. Has he seen the statement, the video of Mr. Dar, who became a Fidain and who killed the 40 innocent Indian security personnel? He never talked about Kashmir at all. It was all about Islam. It was all about Islamic identity. It was all about enforcement of Islamic beliefs. Kashmir was not even mentioned. And look how the story is being twisted. Let us discuss. Is it Kashmir or is it Islam? We have witnessed Islamic terrorism, Islamic fundamentalism across the world. Now to masquerade an event like this as an issue of Kashmir is shocking. It surprises me that a learned professor from the US can perpetrate such lies. Professor, please see his testimony. Please see the video where he explains what he's doing. He talks about Islam and not Kashmir. Kashmir was not even an issue for him.
Okay.
You know, for far too long,
so allow me to
the
come in here.
militants have been using such people to discredit
a response.
the Indian forces.
Okay, let's get a response from Mohamad Junaid. And Parvez, I'm not ignoring you. I'm going to come to you in a moment, but I want to get a response from Mohamad Junaid because according to Sudhanshu, you've just said the biggest lie that he has ever heard. So, response.
So, first of all, of course, Mr. Mittal, who is a learned politician himself, cannot ignore the fact that Kashmir is Muslim. You know, it is primarily a Muslim state, and there's a large majority of people there who follow their faith. And you cannot simply demonize a faith and claim that somehow that faith is responsible for somebody taking that step. The key question is that a person undergoes an experience, and what makes, okay, let's assume that this person had radical ideology. What made it possible for him to accept that ideology? What experiences had he gone through? I mean, you cannot ignore the fact that Kashmir is under a military occupation. There are close to 750,000 Indian soldiers. They have occupied all public spaces in Kashmir. It is impossible to navigate that space without...
Okay, so let me come in here, right? So
you can call it clever, it's your right.
Fair enough. I want to ask Parvez on the ground. Hold on, Sudhanshu, just a second. You'll have an opportunity again. Parvez, on the ground, is it clear to you from a human rights perspective that particularly young people are facing a very heavy-handed approach from the state?
You see, the government of India, that they were following the doctrine of subconventional warfare. If you see that in their doctrine, they say that they have to break the will of the people, right? And the government of India, and the other thing is that why there's such a disproportionate number of the army, more than 600,000 Indian army in Kashmir from last 28 years. And also they have been given the legal impunity. They are given the all sort of impunity, whether it is legal impunity, political impunity, and no moral impunity. And if you see the statement of the Indian Prime Minister in February that army has given the free hand. So this is completely, if you see in Kashmir, that the disproportionate number of the army here fighting 300 militant. That is if we see officially. But in reality, the fact is that they are here to control people. And one of the way of controlling people is the torture. That's what we have mentioned in the report. Torture, Indian state's instrument of control in Jammu and Kashmir. So we have been saying, for example, that torture is one of the phenomena of human rights violations in Kashmir. Otherwise there are other forms also. As you rightly said that in 2008 we have identified the mass graves here, and there are 8,000 disappearances in Kashmir, and government of India has never ever bothered, because the government of India is convinced that they, being the largest democracy, can get away with everything they will do in Kashmir. In 2008, that European Parliament passed a resolution. They urged government of India to hold investigation into the mass graves. Right. So coming to torture, this report about the 432 cases we have mentioned here, in which we have said this is just tip of the iceberg here.
Okay.
Torture, if in other places in the world like Guantanamo Bay, Abu Ghraib, that why it becomes a huge international issue.
Okay.
And there was a whole worldwide condemnation. But in Kashmir, where there are tens of thousands of torture victims here, and all sort of conventional and unconventional torture has been inflicted.
Let me go to Sudhanshu. Parvez, give me a second here. So let me go to Sudhanshu. So Sudhanshu, we look at the reports of the human rights groups, and we have reports of incredible torture. So you have sleep deprivation, you have waterboarding, sodomy, all forms of rape. We have youngsters going to protest and being blinded by pellets. Can you at the very least admit that this stuff might lead young people with no opportunities to possibly join militant groups? Do you at least concede that?
You see, both of these are the faces, civilized faces of the militants and the terrorists of Jammu and Kashmir. And both are perpetrating lies. I just pointed out what Junaid had to say. He was talking about Dar, who himself said Kashmir was not an issue, only Islam was an issue. You heard the other gentleman now. Let me expose his lies also. He has been using the name of civil society to discredit the Indian armed forces. Now, if he's a man of the civil society, he must agree that every civil society swears by the rule of law.
But aren't the
Holy Bible...
Aren't the Indian armed forces discrediting themselves by torturing inmates? That's my question. Why are you attacking the messenger?
No, they are not, because India is not a banana republic. Please understand, India has a very independent judiciary. Indian government cannot give immunity for criminality. Anybody who violates law is punishable, and Indian judiciary is known worldwide for its independence. Look at the number of cases where police officers are in jail because they've chosen to take law in their own hands. Now, to the extent that Supreme Court ordered that wherever there is an encounter, there has to be an FIR. So India is not a banana republic. What they have been trying to do is to give justification to the terrorists who have been on the run.
Okay, so let me get a response from Parvez. Parvez, are you... Hold on,
has made a very determined effort.
Parvez, are you giving justification?
Can I just finish?
Hold on. Parvez, are you giving justification for the terrorists?
I would have liked Parvez to tell me about. He's from the civil society. He should have told me about what happened to the Kashmiri Pandits. Why was there an ethnic cleansing in Jammu and Kashmir?
Parvez,
you just heard Junaid saying
Sudhanshu,
Kashmir is a Muslim country.
I've asked Parvez a question. I've asked Parvez a question. I've asked Parvez
He's not letting me speak. I mean, if we can let it, if there can be a civilized discussion, I mean, then we can continue. You know, the question is that has there been any response from the government of India on this report? No. Has there been any conviction of the army persons here in Kashmir for the violation they have committed? No. Has judiciary, which has no powers in Jammu and Kashmir, which he is saying, gentleman is saying that India has a very independent judiciary, and we have here because I am living in Kashmir, I am not living outside, and as a practicing lawyer, there are 5,000 contempt petitions in the J&K state because the executive and the law enforcement officials are not carrying the orders. I say one thing that, and as far the terrorism is concerned, you know, repeatedly these people are addicted with the word of terrorism. Anybody opposed to that? Terrorism is a related term. For us, the terrorists are the forces here who are committing war crimes, who are committing crimes against humanity. Terrorism, and in Kashmir, if we see the definition of terrorism internationally, meaning that if the civilians are being tortured, are being killed, unarmed, and in this report, 70% cases of torture are the civilian people there. That is terrorism. Occupation, if we say that, they say is the highest form of terrorism. So terrorism is related, and these people are always,
okay,
you know,
but Parvez
always trying to shut the mouth
is
of
killing
the
40 Indian CRPF members terrorism as well.
No, we are not. I, as a civil society activist, I am not advocating violence.
Killed. Yesterday, 5 people killed.
Hold on, the man's answering the question.
I, as a Kashmiri, believe in the non-violent conflict resolution of Kashmir. Kashmir is an issue. People here want the right of self-determination here. That is true. That's the reality, which even has been acknowledged by the United Nations. It is the resolution of the United Nations military observer group presence is in Kashmir is there. Question is whether the government of India, why government of India as a sovereign responsible country is not allowing the special rapporteurs of UN here. Why government of India has rejected the last year the report of the UN High Commissioner's report and not giving the access to the international mechanisms.
So that's a fair question. And allow me to come in here and let me ask Sudhanshu, if India has nothing to hide, why not allow that commission of inquiry that the UN Human Rights Council wants to hold and have to probe what's going on the ground in Kashmir?
We are an independent sovereign country. We are a democracy which is acclaimed by the world. We have a judiciary. We have a Human Rights Commission. These are the institutions. They are the ones who are authorized to do that. Let him approach them and let him get anything conducted. Who has a problem? Again, he's a liar. When I say he's a liar, let me tell you one thing. In 1956, the people of Jammu and Kashmir themselves enacted the Jammu and Kashmir Constitution, which says Jammu Kashmir is an integral part of India.
Do we want to talk about 1947, 1956?
And Lashkar-e-Toiba.
Okay.
These are the two.
Do we want to have a history discussion or do we want to discuss what's going on?
I am willing to talk to him about anything he has.
Okay, so how about, for the sake of this discussion, let's talk about the current context on the ground.
Responsibility of terrorism.
Okay.
Is he condemning them?
Okay, I want to ask Mohamad Junaid.
Jaish-e-Mohammed and Lashkar-e-Toiba and
Mohamad Junaid.
These are the organizations.
So Sudhanshu, you've thrown out a bunch of rhetorical questions here, right? So Mohamad Junaid, on the one hand, we have the state saying that Pakistan is supporting militant groups, picking off these young people and exploiting them and using them for terrorism against India in Kashmir. On the other hand, we have people saying this is homegrown. This is a homegrown response to a homegrown problem because of brutality and military occupation within Kashmir, and these people need self-determination. I guess the question is it a combination of both at this moment in time?
Look, at the heart of this question that I want to ask Mr. Mittal is also that on one side, India does claim Kashmir to be part of India, and it claims Kashmiris to be citizens. On the other hand, it denies Kashmiris some of the basic fundamental rights that are given to its citizenry. Like he said, India is a functioning democracy. And okay, that's fine. But this democracy does not extend to Kashmir. Like Parvez Imroz Sahab asked him whether this report will be discussed in the Indian Parliament, or the State Human Rights Commission has made several recommendations over the years to the government of India, and no prosecution has taken place. How can a country which claims to be a democracy treat its so-called citizens like this? This is totally unethical. You cannot claim that Kashmiris are citizens and then treat them as enemies. I mean, where is the question of Pakistan in all of this? You can keep talking about Pakistan, you can talk about terrorism and Islam and all of those things, but at the root is the question of citizenship here. Do you want to treat Kashmiris as citizens? And if you treat them as citizens, as you continue to claim, then give them those basic rights that you give people in India.
Sudhanshu Mittal?
Again, he's a liar. In the Indian Parliament, umpteen number of times Kashmir has been discussed, and umpteen number of times documents have been placed on the floor of House. So if he does not know it, he should not make these comments. Secondly, he's silent about the ethnic cleansing. In Kashmir, the Kashmiri Pandits in one single day were driven out of that state. More than 300,000 Kashmiri Pandits had to leave their houses. Their women were raped, they were killed, their houses, the establishments were ransacked. And these were people who remained quiet.
If we are to say terrible things happen to Hindu Pandits, Sudhanshu, terrible, hold on. Are we saying because terrible things happen to Hindu Pandits historically, and they were pushed out of the valley by Muslims, that means that a permanent state of military occupation, lockdowns, blinding kids with pellets, torturing them in prisons, is justifiable because they bear the burdens of the past?
I am so surprised at your question itself. If terrorists and militants are killing people, they were earlier killing the Kashmiri Pandits, then they were killing the Muslims there. If they continue to kill the army personnel, in fact, yesterday, 5 security personnel were killed yesterday. None of these human rights activists even made one noise. None of them condemned it. Have they condemned Lashkar-e-Toiba? Have they condemned Jaish-e-Mohammed, which are organizations claiming that they were responsible for this brutal killing? They are the ones who are claiming that, yes, we are militants and we will perpetrate violence. These are the people who are endorsing violence. In a state of, in any civilized society, rule of law is paramount. Rule of law does not permit anybody to take law in his own hand. Okay. Now, these people want to selectively express themselves and say, the Indian forces are doing it. No, they are defending.
That should include Indian security forces
They are
as well.
defending the people of Kashmir.
I want to bring Parvez in very
sovereignty of the country.
Okay, so Sudhanshu, I want to bring in Parvez very finally, especially something I've noticed as an outsider in covering this story, that ever since the killing of Burhan Wani, which is now 3 years ago, the atmosphere has changed. Things are different on the ground, right? So never mind Pulwama recently, but this has been building up for about 3 years. Do you agree that over the past 3 years, things have just gotten worse?
No, things are same. I mean, for example, things is unfortunately, things are likely to, it will be the same. The control of the Indian army is increasing day by day, but the point is different. For example, the point is whether even in wars there are limits how the war should be conducted and how the combatant should behave, right? I'm just telling here that the Indian army, which is disproportionate, more than 600,000 army personnel here, fighting 300 militant and controlling the population in Kashmir, which want their right of self-determination. I say that the point is that how the Indian army should behave here.
But Parvez, do you accept, sorry to interrupt you, very finally, do you accept that from their perspective, they're saying, we've put 600,000 army personnel to fight this militancy, and Yet, still, 40 of our own are getting blown up, so we need to fight harder. Do you accept that perspective, Parvez?
I don't think, honestly, I don't feel, maybe I will be wrong, that
Pakistan has been perpetrating
I don't feel that the army militaristic solution is possible in Kashmir. Maybe for some time they'll be able to control. Maybe they will neutralize the all militant here one time, but it will again resurface in one or the other form, in a non-violent resistance form. I mean, you see, we have an example of the Palestine. How the Israel and Israel. I mean, the India is now completely following the footsteps of Palestine. It's the reality now. They are doing the same thing here. And the present government of the BJP, which has now a huge mandate, has gone. So they believe that only the militaristic solution is possible. They are not for a political solution, which is the reality, and they don't want to see the reality.
Okay. Well, gentlemen, the reality on the ground is indeed a terrible one, and this is why we're having this discussion. I'd love to invite you back on the program. I have to move on.
Us to hand over India to Pakistan.
I'd like to have you back on the program. I have to move on. Parvez Imroz, Sudhanshu Mittal, and Mohamad Junaid, thanks so much for joining us.